In this video, I'm going to show you how to do practice problem number 1. If you want to watch my next video, I'll do practice problem number 3 in that one. That's definitely the hardest one on the sheet. This video is more to show you my process for doing these, how I kind of go through and look at it reactant by reactant and then product by product, and then finally how I cancel things out at the end. So this is my way of doing things. I kind of start with my reactants and kind of work my way across. So I'm going to start with 6H2. I want to find hydrogen gas in one of these equations down here. The only place that I see hydrogen is right here, but there's no coefficient in front of it. So that means I'm going to have to make this a 6. So I'm going to multiply this entire equation by 6. I'm also going to make sure that I multiply my delta H by 6 as well, because anything I do the equation, that needs to be reflected in the delta H. So I'm going to add a 6 here. And this will become a 3, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then this will become a 6. And I'm going to make sure I write times 6 over here. So now I have my 6H2 and my 6H2. So I have one thing done. Next thing I'm going to look at is my 4C. I have to look for where I can find carbon on here. The only place that carbon is right here. So this is the only way I'm going to get my 4C. So I'm going to have to multiply by 4. And so I'm going to get 4O2, and I'm going to get 4CO2. And again, I'm going to make sure I reflect this over in my delta H. So this is times 4. And now I have my 4C. Now, sometimes what will happen in these problems, you'll get to a reactant or you'll get to a product, and you won't quite know how to accomplish it down here. So this is one of those situations where you know you need a single oxygen without any coefficient in front of it, but you don't really see one down here. And we can't change these really besides adding coefficients or multiplying or flipping. You know, it's going to look like it's going to be hard to accomplish this. What will sometimes happen is I'll tell you to move on. I'll tell you to move on to the next substance. And sometimes by fixing that, we're going to suddenly see a solution to that one reactant that we can't quite figure out. So for now, we're just going to skip this, and we're going to move on to C2H5OH. So I need to find this formula, I need to find the right state of matter. I see it over here, but there's two things wrong with it. So one thing that's wrong is that I see it on the reactant side and it needs to be on the product side. The other thing that's wrong is it needs a coefficient of 2, and right now it has no coefficient. So it doesn't really matter what order you do this in. You could flip it and then change the coefficient, then flip it. I like to do that first. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this whole thing by 2, and then I'll flip it after. So this becomes a 2. This becomes a 6. This becomes a 4. And this becomes a 6. And what I like to do when I flip the equation, so not only do we multiply this by 2, but we're also going to flip it. That means we're going to flip the sign of delta H. What I like to do when I flip my equation is I actually like to rewrite it. That kind of helps me just see a little better, to see what I'm ending with. So I'm just going to rewrite this down here really quick. So 4CO2 plus 6H2O. So my products are becoming reactants right now because I flipped my equation. And now 2C2H5OH plus 6O2. So now I have my 2C2H5OH, just like I need up here. So now the last thing left is oxygen. Now what you want to remember is that I like to kind of draw a line here to separate this. What you want to remember is that you can cancel things out if you have the same thing on both sides of the line. So the same thing on the reactant side as you do the product side. So what you want to keep in mind is that on this side of the equation, we have now 4 plus 3. So we have 7 oxygens on this side, and we have 6 on this side. That means 6 of these will actually cancel out. And that means we're going to be left with 1 oxygen, and that's actually what we wanted. So I'm going to get rid of this. This I'm just going to fix over here. It doesn't really matter which one I fix, but I know I have to get rid of 6. So I'm just going to change this to a 1. So there's my 1 oxygen that I needed as one of my reactants. And now I have my 4 carbon. Now I have my 6H2, and I have my 2 C2H5OH. So I have everything that I needed, and now theoretically everything else should cancel out. Remember, it has to have the same coefficient, be the same substance, and have the same state of matter. So 4 CO2 gas cancels out 4 CO2 gas. 6 H2O liquid cancels out 6 H2O liquid. Sorry, I'm just going to cross this out because this was the equation that I flipped already. And we're good. So everything else canceled. And now we just go over here and we just add these numbers together. And the answer to this one, sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that, just looking for the answer really quick. Negative 1542. 0.84 kilojoules per mole. Okay, so now I'm going to do practice problem 3 in the next video.